Hello and welcome to another episode of Video Breakdown. This week we have Kids in America. Without a doubt, the most complex AMV I've ever created. So I'm just going to start from the beginning and pull the video apart piece by piece. Let's get to it. So in tradition, we had to do the classic zoom out, and wow. I mean, just look at all of this stuff. There's 7 video tracks, 2 audio tracks, you know, everything is so colorful. Yeah, so I mean, really this is the most complex AMV that I've ever created, so it's, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, as it were. So yeah, let's just get to the next part. Alright, starting from the beginning, we have the VHS stop, rewind, play part. So for those of you who grew up after the VHS tape player, all the movies and TV shows you had on tape, you had to physically rewind the tape over to play it again. I still have this device that's dedicated to rewinding VHS tapes. I don't know why, but there you go. So what I did was I created 3 still images, stop, rewind, play, plus the symbols. Then I made an adjustment layer. Next I added a noise effect. I set the amount of noise to 30%, and the noise type, I didn't use color noise. After that I added a wave warp effect. The wave type is set to smooth noise. The height is set to 5. The width is set to 1000. The direction 0. The speed is set to -0.4. Pinning none. Anti-aliasing high. This effect was used to make the still images shake just a little bit. It makes it look like an actual VHS player. And finally, I added a Gaussian blur. This was used to reduce the quality, which I find very funny. The blurriness was set to 8. The dimensions were set to horizontal and vertical, and repeat edge pixels. So just a couple things about this first part is that the still images were originally 4:3 and blue. So what I did was I duplicated the still images, moved them around a bit, you know, and made it fit to the 16:9 ratio. I also added an ultra key effect to turn the blue to black. So I'm not sure if you were able to hear it or not, but there's a VHS hum sound underneath the music track. Alright, so this is the biggest, part of the video. It's, what makes the video the way it is, which is the VHS look effect. So this is broken up into 4 major parts, I guess, and we'll get to them right now. The first part, and one of the most important parts of the VHS look, is RGB splitting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a clip of footage that wasn't used in the video itself, just to demonstrate, what I'm talking about. So what you do is you add an arithmetic video effect, you set the operator to max, then you set the opacity of the clip to linear dodge. Next you duplicate the clip 3 times. The first clip or top clip's red value is set to the max, 255. The rest is set to 0. The second clip or middle clip's green value is set to the max. So you can probably guess what's going to happen with this last clip. The third clip or the bottom clip's blue value is set to 255, the max, the rest is set to 0. At this point it should look normal, or like the original clip you had. Where RGB splitting starts to happen is when you start to mess around with the motion settings, like position and scale. So I've seen some videos of people doing the VHS look, and I also use some actual VHS tapes that I own as a reference to, I guess in my opinion, correctly get the look that I wanted for the RGB splitting. I've seen some videos where people like to split the color with the green channel clip. I've also seen some people do blue channel splitting. I think the best way to achieve this look is to split the red channel. I set the position of my red channel clip from 960 to 945, which is minus 15 points. And the final touch, I added a Gaussian blur effect. You set the blurriness to 20, the blur dimensions to horizontal and vertical, and you repeat edge pixels. This makes the RGB splitting look a little bit more organic, more true, and true to the real VHS look. And the last part is I nest the clip so it doesn't crowd up the editing timeline. So if you look at the editing timeline, you can just see nests that are just from beginning to end. I did this roughly 83, plus times. It was very, monotonous, but worth it in the end. Sometimes the RGB splitting showed in the video really well. Other times, not so well. You can barely see it, and it just didn't show up as much as I wanted it to. Alright, part 2 of the VHS look. More color correction. RGB splitting adds a lot to the VHS look, but the finer tuning is in the color correction. So the first thing I do is I create an adjustment layer. This is used throughout the timeline. Then I add a Gaussian blur effect to this adjustment layer. I set the blurriness to 5, the dimensions horizontal and vertical, and I repeat edge pixels. Next, I add some noise. Another reason why I went back to fix the video was that there wasn't enough noise. The noise amount is set at 10%. For the noise type, I used the color noise. After that, I add a color balance HLS effect. The hue is set to plus 15 degrees. The lightness is set to plus 10 points. The saturation is set at negative 20 points. The color balance HLS effect really gives the video the extra details. And last but not least, I added a sharpen effect. The sharpen is set to 10. Now, part 3 of the VHS look. To take us all back to the dark times of 4:3 TVs, cropping. I've seen a lot of videos of people who weren't cropping their videos, which is fine, but I feel like why not go all the way, I wanted that authenticity. So this is very simple. All I did was I made an adjustment layer, I added the crop effect, set the left and right crop adjustments to 12%, on a video that's 1920 by 1080, this is exactly 4:3. Other times, I had to position the footage differently than the default, because it wouldn't have been centered properly, or just didn't look right to me. Alright, part 4 of the VHS look. Last but not least, VHS tracking. So when you see the VHS tracking, you immediately know VHS, 80s, etc. There were a few choices of VHS tracking overlays, and I want to go on record to say that I actually didn't want to use this variant. Why? Because this variant is used everywhere. It's the most commonly used in other videos. I wanted to be somewhat original. I wanted to stand out a little bit, but in the end, it does look the best, and you can't really argue with results. So if you go on YouTube and search it somewhere or find it on a website, you can find this, VHS overlay. I watched one video of someone making this music video, and he said you should bring down the opacity of the VHS tracking because it makes it more realistic. And let me tell you, he was totally right. It looks way, way better with the opacity turned down. So I would say anywhere from 50% to 75%, just depends on what you're working with. Alright, moving along, we have glitches. I have like PTSD just thinking about glitches. They didn't work half the time, like adjustment layers wouldn't work, offsets wouldn't work. Yeah, man, I tried some crazy stuff for it to work, and I'd rather not talk about it. I was very meticulous about how I wanted some of these glitches to act, and I still don't completely like the way they look. So there's 3 different glitches. There's a full roll glitch, pre-made glitches, and minor glitches. I call them glitch aftershocks. First, I created an adjustment layer. I added a magnify effect. The shape is set to square, the magnification is set to 110, link size to magnification, and the size is set to 4000, or the max. This gives it kind of a glass screen look, I guess. Next I add one of two wave warp effects. For the first wave warp, the wave type is set to smooth noise, the height is set to 50, the width is set to 50, direction 0, speed -1, pinning none, phase 0, and anti-aliasing high. This gives the glitch its distorted look, ripping and tearing. Next we have the second wave warp. The wave type was set to sine, height -75, width 500, direction 0, speed -1, pinning vertical edges, phase 0, anti-aliasing high. This is what makes the glitch wavy. The second wave warp was different for every rolling glitch. This made it randomized and unpredictable. I would use sines, squares, triangles, sawtooths, etc. This also means different wave warp settings for each glitch. I'm just using this one as an example. Next I add a color balance HLS effect. I set the saturation at -50. This gives the glitches additional color distortion. Again, each glitch is a little bit different. Sometimes I messed around with the hue changing its color. Alright, next we have the offset effect. This is what makes the rolling effect happen. Now I would say to add this effect to the same adjustment layer, but I had some issues doing this. Sometimes the offset would freeze mid-roll, other times the wave warps weren't working properly. Every rolling glitch is 12 frames or half a second. You can get away with 18 frames or 3/4 of a second, but any longer and I don't think it would look very good. For the shift center 2, I keyframe from 540 to -540, then from -540 back to 540. Again, each glitch roll is a little bit different. This one is just one example. So the next type of glitch, we have pre-made glitches. I found these online somewhere. I can't remember for the life of me where I got them. Obviously these glitches are already made. All I had to do was drag and drop them on the clips that I wanted. And the last type of glitch is the minor glitches or glitch aftershocks. So these are very similar to the rolling glitch, but it's less extreme. So these glitch aftershocks were shorter than a rolling glitch. They were 6 frames or 1/4 of a second. Sometimes they were a little bit longer. So what I did was I created an adjustment layer. Then I added a color balance HLS effect. The saturation was set at -50 to -75. I add a wave warp effect. The wave type was set at smooth noise, height 100, width 1000, direction 0, wave speed 0.5, pinning vertical edges, phase 0, anti-aliasing high. After that, I added a second wave warp. The type is noise, height 10, width 1000, direction 0, speed 1, pinning vertical edges, phase 180, anti-aliasing high. And last, I add a offset effect. Frame by frame, I shifted the center to 530, 520, 510, 580, 560, 550. It's kind of funny because these glitches were almost like a digital band-aid. I put them on clips when I felt like the clips were stale or go on a bit too long. It makes you forget that the clip has gone on for longer than you're used to. Alright, all the meat of the video is out of the way. Get into the smaller little things, you know, here and there. And first we have Bulma sunbathing. All the footage I use in my AMVs are TV shows and movies that I physically own on DVD or Blu-ray. If I don't have the footage, I don't have the footage. I'm pretty ashamed to admit it, but I did get this clip off of YouTube. The version that I have has Japanese credits that roll over it and make it pretty much unusable. Alright, moving on. Nest 19. So I was pretty proud of myself for this little effect. If you look at the clips inside Nest 19, they all have a directional blur effect added to them. The direction is set at 90 degrees. The blur length is set at 25. This made the transition from Nest 19 to 20 seem faster and a lot smoother looking. Alright, now we have Nest 62. So inside Nest 62, the clips are horizontally flipped. I wanted Marin to go in one direction, from left to right. The original footage of Marin, her going right to left, was used for comedic effect. So with a video breakdown, I want to show you everything. I want to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So up next we have the 4:3 crop adjustment layer keyframe. For whatever reason, I wasn't able to keyframe the left and right of the crop effect. The adjustment layer wasn't working properly, basically. What I did was I cut the adjustment layer frame by frame 24 times. Then set every frame to slowly go from 12.5% on each side to 0%. This is what made the video go from 4:3 to 16:9. Alright, moving along, we have the Synthwave End Slate. Since this video was a little extra special, I wanted to do something a little extra special for the video's end slate. So some of you might already know this, but I've been really into the whole synthwave music and art style, which is sort of an homage to the 80s. So we created a special end slate. It took about a week or two to make. I wanted everything to look the way I wanted it to look. What I was going for was kind of like the old HBO intros from the 70s and 80s. Before I talk about how I made this end slate, I want to show you the other versions I had for this end slate. It all started with this one. It's very basic, it's super corny, but had sort of the core of what I wanted. The second version added a couple new layers, and I also made the background darker and richer. This gave it more of that synthwave look. And finally, the latest and greatest. It looks so beautiful, if I do say so myself. Anyway, making this end slate wasn't exactly complicated, it just took some thinking and planning. First, just want to say that the music that I used was a song called Introducing by Mitch Murder. It couldn't have been a better song to use. He makes such great music. I mean, it sounds like it's straight from the 80s. Alright, so the first moving part we have for this end slate is the beams, or those little tiny things that shoot up in the background. I added a crop effect. I cropped the top and keyframed it to rise back up. I feathered the edge to make it look more like a beam of light. For the next moving part, we have the classic synthwave sun. I cropped the bottom and keyframed it to reveal itself. And I also feathered the edge. After that, we have the palm trees. I keyframed the scale to go from 295 to 100. Similar to the palm trees, the scale was keyframed from 0 to 100. Up next we have the 80s logo and kanji. Basically I added a dip to white. I set the duration to 5 frames, which is less than a quarter of a second. This dip to white is actually how I got the flash effect in the end slate. And last we have the palm tree perspective shadow. Maybe you didn't notice it the first time you saw the video, but if you look at the grid, you can see the shadow of the palm trees on the grid when the Dantaku.com and Kanji text appears. I did the same thing as I did to the 80s Dantaku.com logo and Kanji, where I set a dip to white duration to 5 frames. Alright, and the final thing about this video is the TV turning off effect. First, I created an adjustment layer. I added a brightness and contrast effect. I set both brightness and contrast to the max, or 100. Then I added a crop effect. I keyframe cropped the top and bottom from 0 to 50%. This was done over the course of 6 frames, or a quarter of a second. And finally, I feathered the edge by 50. There you go. Video breakdown of Kids in America. Some final words I'd like to share. I still feel like it's not exactly perfect. I really wanted to make the video kind of look like the Robot Rock music video by Daft Punk. I wanted it to glow and kind of shimmer. There were many frustrating moments. I spent hours, days, weeks, and months making it the best it can be. But all that being said, it's one of my favorite AMVs that I've created. Previously, before this, it was Don't Stop Me Now. I'm glad that a good handful of people saw it, and I'm proud of myself for all the work I put into it. I'm also happy that a lot of people were talking about how some of the stuff can only be done using After Effects, but I felt like, hey, I can probably do it in Premiere Pro, and I'm really proud of myself for doing that. So this might be kind of a strange shout out, but I would like to thank Girl Talk's Feed the Animals album. It really helped my creative process. It also gave me the energy I needed when I was so frustrated with the video that I didn't know what to do. So just want to say thanks to Girl Talk, thanks for Feed the Animals, and hopefully he puts out some more music. I really enjoy his stuff. So, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If I missed anything, like maybe there's something in the video that you would like me to explain, definitely, send me a message or whatever, and I'll try to explain it the best I can. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
I like the way she moves, her undercover hoe. It's on once again, Patron once again.